Have you ever booked a domestic flight, looked at that final checkout price, and just thought, wait, how did it get so ridiculously expensive? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the really complex corporate history of how India's airports were privatized. It's actually a totally fascinating, multi-layered journey, and it literally impacts the wallet of anyone buying an airline ticket in India right now. So let's dive straight in.
We really need to dig into one major question. Before we even look at the massive surge in passenger fees you're paying today, we've got to ask, how did this entire system transform so fast? I mean, how did the landscape shift from strictly government-controlled hubs to a scenario where just one massive corporate entity quietly gained control of India's biggest and most profitable airports? To figure that out, here's the roadmap we're going to follow today. We'll start with the initial privatization of airports, meet the early kings of the industry, look at the sudden fall of GVK, the changing of the bidding rules, the passenger fee spikes that followed, and finally, what this brewing monopoly actually means for our future. All right, part one, the privatization of airports and how the government balanced national security with private funding. You see, airports are highly sensitive security zones. They often share critical airspace and runways with the Air Force and the Ministry of Defense. So the government couldn't exactly just hand over the keys entirely to private companies, right? Instead, starting back in 1999 with the Cochin Airport, they introduced the Public-Private Partnership, or PPP model. Basically, the government forms a joint venture, but keeps a chunk of ownership, like around 33% in Cochin's case. It's kind of the perfect best-of-both-worlds setup. The state keeps a firm grip on national security, while private companies bring in the massive cash needed to upgrade infrastructure and handle daily operations. Moving on to Chapter 2, the early airport kings and the phenomenal rise of GMR and GVK. So, following that initial experiment in Cochin, the really prestigious Delhi and Mumbai airports went up for auction in 2006. And winning these crown jewels of Indian aviation, that was a monumental achievement. Delhi went to the GMR group and Mumbai went to the GVK group. By 2008, the booming tech hubs of Hyderabad and Bangalore were privatized and seamlessly added to their portfolios. In just a few short years, GMR and GVK had successfully locked down the biggest, most lucrative airports in the entire country. They were the unquestionable kings of the tarmac, way before any of today's major players even entered the chat. Which brings us to Section 3, the fall of GVK, a wild story involving massive debt, sudden raids, and a swift corporate takeover. To understand this takeover, you have to realize how fragile that early dominance really was. Flush with success, GVK expanded aggressively, way outside of aviation. We're talking power plants, highway projects, and even a massive $1.26 billion coal mine purchase in Australia. But then things stalled. Environmental delays and canceled coal block allocations totally drained their cash, landing them on a 2012 list of the 10 most indebted corporate houses in India. This mountain of debt set the stage for an intense squeeze in 2019. It started when GVK tried to block a partner from selling its Mumbai airport shares. Suddenly, major lenders delayed crucial project funding. Then, an anonymous letter triggered massive CBI and enforcement directorate raids on GVK's offices. Facing this immense financial pressure and sudden investigations, which, by the way, were completely cleared by the CBI years later in 2023, GVK basically had no choice but to surrender its 74% stake in the Mumbai airport to the Adani Group. Okay, part 4. Changing the bidding rules, and the highly anticipated auction of 6 new airports. To really grasp the monumental shift that happened next, we have to look at how things used to work. Running an airport is incredibly complex, right? Back in 2006, the government demanded strict, proven capabilities before they would even look at your finances. You had to pass a rigorous management capability evaluation, then a development capability evaluation. Only after clearing those huge technical hurdles could you submit a financial bid, which was based on sharing a percentage of your overall revenue with the government. The whole system heavily emphasized actual technical experience in aviation. But then, right as 6 new regional airports went up for auction, the entire playbook was completely rewritten. Honestly, it's surprising how drastic the shift was. That strict requirement for prior aviation experience completely dropped. A company with absolutely zero background in running an airport could now bid. The cap limiting how many airports one company could control? Gone. And the financial model shifted away from sharing overall revenue with the government to a simple fixed per-passenger fee model. It was, for all intents and purposes, a totally different game. Now, these sweeping changes definitely didn't go unquestioned.
The Department of Economic Affairs explicitly warned in December 2018 that awarding more than 2 airports to a single bidder could lead to a monopoly and put the airports at risk. NITI Aayog echoed the exact same concerns. But despite those formal warnings, the rule changes went right ahead. Unbound by experience requirements or airport caps, the Adani Group swept all 6 newly available airports by bidding the highest per passenger fees. In some cases, their winning bids were literally triple what their competitors offered. And that brings us to Section 5, the passenger fee spike. Or, to put it simply, how your wallet paid the price. Here's the reality of those exceptionally high bids. The winning company didn't just absorb the cost and take a massive financial loss out of the goodness of their hearts. No, those bids were subsidized directly by you, the passenger. Take Ahmedabad Airport, for example. Before privatization, the user development fee baked into your ticket was a modest 100 rupees. But by February 2023, the fee for an international passenger leaped to 550 rupees. And by April 2024, it jumped again to 880 rupees. That is a staggering overnight increase. And Ahmedabad is for sure not an isolated case. We've seen similar massive hikes at other major hubs, like Bangalore, where fees have increased up to 4 or 5 times in a single year. The crazy part? Most passengers don't even realize they're paying this markup because it's just hidden right there in the taxes and surcharges at the checkout screen. Those incredibly high bids submitted to win the airports were silently but significantly inflating your ticket prices. Let's wrap up with Section 6, Monopoly and the Future. What does this decreased competition mean for us going forward? Currently, GMR still actually leads the market in terms of sheer passenger volume, but economists are paying very close attention because the landscape is shifting fast. The government plans to privatize 50 more airports in the coming years. That is a massive scale of infrastructure handover. With GMR publicly taking a newly conservative approach to bidding, Adani is perfectly positioned to overtake them entirely and dominate the skies. To understand the real economic risk of this impending airport duopoly, we just have to look at the Indian telecom sector. Remember when telecom consolidated down to just 3 major players? In late 2021, we saw a simultaneous 20% price hike across the board. Consumers just had to swallow it. There was nowhere else to go. The exact same risk looms over airports, but potentially worse. If you have to fly out of a specific city, you are a captive audience to whichever company controls that tarmac. You have absolutely no alternative but to pay whatever fees they set. So this leaves us with a really critical question to ponder. When the dust settles and only 1 or 2 private operators control the entire infrastructure of Indian aviation, who protects the everyday passenger from unlimited ticket fee hikes? It's a question we are all going to be paying for the answer to. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.